man had died and a woman was in hospital with life-threatening injuries. Then, this morning, the fire department posted an update online saying a second victim had died. But in a tweet shared later in the afternoon, they corrected themselves, saying they had made a mistake and that the second person was still being treated for injuries. Although it was a mistake, Deputy Fire Chief James Waffle says it's actually good news.
This is good news. As we also talked about earlier, fire and burn and smoke inhalation injuries are always difficult. They can be touch and go for a long period of time. So we are absolutely happy to hear that that somebody is still alive, and we're certainly praying for a good outcome.
Waffle says as soon as they were alerted that the person was still alive, they updated the public.
So Dan, clearly a sensitive situation, and I want to ask you, what do we know about the house and the people who were living in that house?
While I was out at the house yesterday, neighbors told me that normally there was a steady stream of people heading in and out its back door. Fire officials say the home was operating as a fourplex. Now, it's not clear how many people were living there when the fire was sparked, but the Salvation Army says one person who had been staying in the house is now in their shelter.
And a gentleman who was living at that location where the fire had taken place, and they had inquired of our shelter whether we had an opening where they could come and stay at our center, and we did. No doubt any incidents like this will be traumatic in nature, but from all indications from our staff, they're doing well.
Investigators with the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office are working to determine what exactly caused the fire, but both fire investigators and police today said that they had no new updates. Kat.
Thanks, Dan. The CBC's Dan Takamo reporting live. It isn't easy to navigate Windsor by foot after a large snowfall, and it's even more difficult for those with mobility issues. Jacob Barker set out today to find out why it's important to keep your sidewalk shoveled.
Shoveling is no fun, but if it's your house, you've got to keep the sidewalk clear out front. Not only is it the law, it's also a way you can help people who need the sidewalk shoveled more than most. Just a quick spin around Windsor and you can see who's doing their part and who isn't. Even major stretches like Riverside. For Danica McPhee, she has issues even along her own stretch of road. She says it can keep her from spending time with one of her best friends and bring on some extra costs.
It's difficult because, I have a dog. I walk my dog every day. I assume that I'm kind of known to the neighborhood, at least to see me, and it makes you feel a little not respected or thought about.
There are programs through the city such as the Snow Angels program, which will send volunteers to clear snow for people who may have mobility issues and seniors. But it's fair to say some people just don't pull their weight when it comes to clearing snow.
I'm conflicted about it. I get so upset when I'm rolling over the snow and my fingers are freezing and I can't move. But then I wonder, is it somebody with a disability in there? Are they trapped inside as well? But nonetheless, I do get angry.
She says the curb cuts need clearing, otherwise people can get stuck. She would like to see a more proactive approach by the city, one that isn't complaint-based.
That actually puts all the onus on the person who's already being discriminated against to stand up for themselves, and they just might not be able to do that. So definitely more monitoring.
I do what I can do. I'm not young anymore either, or real young anyway, but we get out and do it anyway, so as best as we can.
John Luxford keeps the front of his house spick and span for everybody that may pass by.
It's respect for the postal people and anybody else coming up and down your sidewalk. It's our responsibility to, take care of our part. So,
Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
The number of new cases of COVID-19 continues to drop in Windsor, Essex. 19 new cases today. This as the province plans to end its stay-at-home order for the region a week from today. But even still, the health unit says things can change very quickly.
We also have to recognize that we still have a COVID variant that is circulating in other parts of the province. And it won't be too long before we will have our local case of COVID variant in our region. And as we know that the COVID variant can spread even much quickly than the others. So what we have seen in November and December timeline, it can be even worse than what would happen if we see a COVID variant in our region.
Ahmed says as we start to reopen, the risks continue to exist. As for the decision to lift the stay-at-home order next week, Ahmed says that there's no right answer, but that it's a balancing act between a number of factors, including health and economic well-being. Ahmed says we do meet the criteria for red zone restrictions, which could move us out of lockdown. Windsor Regional Hospital is relaxing visitor restrictions starting tomorrow. The recent reduction of COVID cases will allow patients at the Met and Olette campus time with a loved one. The new rule will allow one essential visitor per patient to visit each day in one specified time slot. A maximum of 2 essential visitors may be chosen by the patients to rotate throughout their stay in hospital. Health Canada says it will allow a 6th dose to be taken from each vial of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
Based on its assessment, Health Canada has determined that each vial will reliably contain 6 doses of vaccine plus sufficient overfill volume when proper technique is used.
The approval lets the drug maker relabel the vials originally meant for 5. A special syringe is needed to extract all of the vaccine in each bottle without wasting any. Canada has already received its first order of low dead volume syringes, with more expected in the coming weeks. As part of the approval, Pfizer has to provide educational support to administration sites in Canada. This week's shipment of 70,000 doses will still be calculated at 5 doses per vial. With the new change in place, 400,000 more doses are expected next week, and an additional 475,000 in the last week of February. Good news for some self-employed Canadians caught up in the confusion over COVID emergency benefit eligibility. The government now says they are being let off the hook. The Prime Minister's announcement comes as a relief for many facing thousands of dollars in repayment. Karina Roman has more from Ottawa.
For people who accessed CERB based on their gross income instead of their net income, as long as you meet the other eligibility criteria, you will not have to return those CERB payments.
This is a clear reversal for the government. Late last year, the Canada Revenue Agency told more than 440,000 Canadians they might have to repay their COVID benefits. Many were self-employed who had applied for CERB based on incorrect information about how to calculate their income eligibility. Incorrect information they received from the government. But in the past, the minister in charge had insisted that despite that, repayment would be necessary. Not anymore.
We've heard from many Canadians who find themselves in difficult positions because of this honest understanding of their eligibility. And we reached a conclusion that the fairest and most reasonable way to move forward on this would be to allow people who applied using gross to not have to repay their benefits.
That means self-employed Canadians who calculated their income without including their business expenses are off the hook, as long as that income is at least $5,000. And the government says those who have already paid back their benefits voluntarily, that money will be reimbursed. The news comes as a big relief.
Today, I'm absolutely thrilled. And I'm thrilled not just because there are so many struggling self-employed individuals out there who now have just this huge load off their chest, but I'm also absolutely ecstatic about the fact that citizen action did work.
There's good news as well for Canadians who made $75,000 or less in 2020. They will have until April next year to repay any taxes they owe on pandemic benefits they received, and they won't have to pay any interest. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
Soon, all non-essential travelers coming into the country, even through a land border, will need to show a negative COVID-19 test.
As of February 15th, when you return to Canada through a land border, you'll need to show a 72-hour PCR test, just like for air travel.
Trudeau says legally Canadians can't be turned away at the border, but those who show up without proof of a test could face fines of up to $3,000. Air travelers are already required to show proof of a negative PCR test within 3 days before their flight back to Canada. This is in addition to the mandatory 14-day quarantine period for all non-essential travelers. Ash Wednesday will be marked a bit differently this year. Usually, Christians participate in services that include having a priest or a pastor mark a sign of the cross on a person's forehead or the back of their hand. But with COVID restrictions in place, that won't be happening this year. Jill Molnar has more.
Ash Wednesday is the first day of Lent, the 40-day period leading up to Easter. This year it falls on February the 17th. The Catholic Diocese of London has cancelled all services for Ash Wednesday next week. It means the traditional marking of ashes in the form of a cross will not happen. The Windsor-Essex Catholic District School Board will replace in-person services with virtual services. It will post a link on its website so that students can log on from either at home or in class. The superintendent in charge of faith issues at the board says while there won't be any ash on Ash Wednesday, it will still be the official start of Lent.
Prayer and the fasting and in the Catholic tradition, that's an important part of our faith, and we do that with the hope of greater things to come.
Riverside United Church usually holds Ash Wednesday services, but instead they will pre-tape a service ahead of time and post it online next Tuesday night. The pastor will mark his wife's forehead and she will mark his. But he says not having the service is disappointing for church members.
I'd say by and large people are fed up with the COVID situation. They're dying to get back to church. They miss their friends. They miss the worship service.
As Lent is not only a period of sacrifice but also of hope, the hope this year will be for a more normal Easter.
I believe that when we are eventually out of the pandemic, I think it'll help people to appreciate what we do have.
A normal Ash Wednesday, the first thing Christians in Windsor will be giving up for Lent this year. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Sad news from Motown today. Mary Wilson, one of the founders of the legendary Supremes, has died at the age of 76.
In the name of love, instead of breaking up, let's do some kissing and making up.
Just a couple of their famous hits. Wilson is remembered as a trailblazer, a diva, and the glue that kept the legacy of the group alive. She co-founded the group when she was just 15 years old, and she sang background vocals for Diana Ross. And after the original members left and new ones joined, Wilson stayed with the group until it finally split in 1977. But the group also left a mark right here in Windsor. Back in the 60s, the Supremes were regulars on Swingin' Time, an hour-long music and dance program produced in the building that I am in right now, the CBC building. Back then, it was the home of CKLW-TV. The Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, The Temptations, they all performed right here. For a look back at that remarkable moment in time at the height of Motown, I spoke with the stage manager for Swingin' Time about what that was all like and his response to the news of Wilson's death.
It's time for a Swingin' Time special. The world's most exciting vocal group, the sensational Supremes.
When you hear things like this, you reminisce about the good times that you had and the good things about the person. And that's what I thought. I thought there goes another era, another great person who was very influential in the music industry and Windsor and Detroit for that matter.
And what is your memory of the Supremes, given that you saw them perform live? What do you remember of Mary Wilson? What do you remember of the Supremes?
Well, the thing about the Robin Seymour show was that you didn't have a lot of time, because it was live, you didn't have a lot of time to sit down and chat with the people, because they would come in, you'd bring them in the dressing room, and then when it was their time, you'd bring them out into the studio. And my function was to cue Robin Seymour and move the talent in and out and things like that. And so once the show started, it was 1 hour of live music. But the Supremes, they were upstarts at the time. They were just beginning, as was Stevie Wonder and everybody else. So for us, it was almost like part of the family of your own age of people coming in to perform on a show and promote their who they are. So it was very, very impressive, the beginning of the Motown series. I look at the Supremes, I look at Stevie Wonder, I look at the things that Motown did, and I look at where they went with that. So they started off as small-time people in a very small recording studio, performing in a television studio like CKLW at the time, where all they could do is lip sync, because we didn't have the technology to have them perform voice live. And then you see where they went with it, and they really built it. And the Supremes, to this day, when I see either old clips or new performances or anything like that, it just warms your heart, because you think it's so nice that you were such a small part of such a great thing, and it moved on for years. So it was an amazing ride.
And I have to say, for myself, sitting in this building right now, knowing that this is where so much of that took place, what is it like for you? I don't know, when you drive down Riverside and you pass by the CBC building, knowing that that was the place where these icons came together, performed, and you got to be a part of it all. Tell me about what that feels like for you.
It was such a phenomenal history that when I drive by, and if somebody's in the car, I say, I worked there. My office was right there where you could see the billboard on Riverside Drive. And I say it with a great deal of pride. I mean, it's the best times. And you look at that as it was amazing. And I was so lucky to be part of it.
Very cool to know that a lot of that happened right here. There's a live look at our city. -15 overnight tonight, and there is more snow on the way over the next few days. So Colette Kennedy will join us later, right after the break, with your full weather forecast. Welcome back. So far this month, there's been snow, rain, ice, and bitter cold. Last night, more snow fell to the ground, made for a bit of a slick drive home. The snow still sticking around today. Cold temperatures, a lot of ice floating along the Detroit River this morning. A pretty sight if you enjoy the snow and the ice. Some of that was gone by this afternoon, but a few flurries did come down, and we are expecting not more snow tonight, but tomorrow, according to my check. But let's go now to Colette Kennedy to give us the more specific breakdown of what we can expect.
Sure, Kat, I'd love to fill you in on that. Yeah, it's looking like kind of flurries to maybe a dusting. So some light stuff kind of coming through. We're just getting tagged by a system to the south of us for tomorrow. But definitely some colder air headed our way. We've been talking about what's been going on in the prairies. Just look at how much of the country is under an extreme cold warning. All the areas that you see in purple. Yes, and some of those wind chills -40 to -60. So at least we're not talking about that kind of cold air. But if you do watch our area and watch as I play this through towards the end of the week, we're going to see that cold air sinking further down, further south, so kind of taking over and our temperatures falling off a little bit. So likely to see the coldest readings we've had so far this season. It's going to be close because this is what it looks like. If we go back even towards November, even though not officially winter, but still, let's take you back there. Coldest. This was the coldest reading we had in December, but then January, end of January, almost -14, and then -15 just back on the weekend. And I think we're going to at least get back to that -15. We may even fall another degree or two cooler than that. So these are our current readings. Yes, Chatham-Kent -12, -8 for Windsor, Sarnia at -10. The wind chills, even without the winds being really strong, it doesn't take much to knock these back towards the mid-teens in terms of how it feels. We actually get some clearing tonight, and then that system with its track, because it's to the south of us, but kind of just pushing a little north on the storm track there with the jet stream, we're going to see likely sun to start and then the clouds rapidly increasing in our skies, and this just kind of moving through into the afternoon and early evening, and then clearing out, and we get actually into some sunnier conditions as we go towards Thursday. So this one is just a little bit of a dusting, maybe up to about 1 centimeter in terms of what we'd be seeing out of it. And again, that's for tomorrow. For tonight, -15, feeling like -21. That's why I say cold. A little bit of patchy fog is certainly possible, and a 40% chance of getting into that precipitation tomorrow. Windsor, Leamington, even Chatham-Kent. It's more of a 30% chance, though, as we go up towards Sarnia and London. Look ahead, though. I've got us Friday night at -15. I think we likely could do -16 there, and that's why I'm saying coldest air of the season. It's going to be close, but I think it's coming towards the end of the week, Kat.
Oh, man. You know, I'm not a fan of the cold, but I'm trying to lean into the, bundle season. I've got a little poncho wrap at my desk. Tea at night.
Just gotta embrace it. Think of the ski operators, some of them in the province getting to open up. They're making snow.
Exactly.
It's gonna stick. So
there are positives. We just gotta look for them.
That's right.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, when we come back, today was day one of Trump's second impeachment trial in the U.S. Senate. We'll have that report for you right after the break. The U.S. Senate has paved the way for a full impeachment hearing after a majority rejected attempts by Donald Trump's lawyers to halt proceeding by arguing he's no longer in office.
It's our solemn constitutional duty to conduct a fair and honest impeachment trial of the charges against former President Trump, the gravest charges ever brought against a president of the United States in American history.
The former U.S. president has been charged with inciting the deadly mob attack on the Capitol on January 6th, with prosecutors pointing at Trump, telling those at the earlier rally to, quote, fight like hell. The former president's lawyers say that was a figure of speech. At least 17 Republicans would have to side with Democrats to vote to convict Trump, which appears unlikely. Trump has already been impeached in the House of Representatives. He was not in the Senate chambers today. A silver lining for folks caught in the grips of an extreme cold snap in parts of the prairies. They can catch a spectacular light show right outside their window in the night skies. Here is a look at the northern lights over Saskatchewan. And while it may look like a time lapse, the stunning images were actually captured in real time. Canada's northern latitudes and minimal light pollution make it optimal for viewing the dazzling display from autumn until late winter. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and we're on social media as well. But before we go, I want to leave you with this, a song from Mary Wilson from her time with the Supremes. Wilson has died at the age of 76. The cause is unknown. Wilson co-founded the group when she was just 15 years old. And she'll be remembered as a trailblazer and for her remarkable voice. Have a great evening.
And I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived, and I thank